Today, we're gonna do a sharpen my axe on this CMG Ashley guitar that I bought used. Now, this guitar is definitely interesting and unique, and here's why. First, you're seeing a Les Paul, I'm sure. But this company that makes these guitars in the USA at a very affordable price does something that I think is interesting. They have a custom option where they can make the guitar hollow, and for a certain fee, you can get it without F-holes. So this guitar is totally hollow, that's right. In fact, I kind of took the back control off so you can see inside the guitar. Look at that. Now it's a little hard to see in there, but you understand? It is hollow. This guitar is weighing in at a very light 5.7 pounds, but there's an issue with this guitar that we need to talk about. It's really top heavy. In fact, whether it's on a strap or in your lap, it just wants to nosedive really bad. And I've decided the culprit is these tuning keys. They are Grover 18:1 ratio tuning keys, which I generally like, but they are super heavy and they're way too heavy to be on a guitar like this. So we're gonna take them off and go with some ultralight hip shots. I think they would help this guitar balance. Now, a couple other features about this guitar that on all of the Ashleys that I thought was cool is it's a two-piece mahogany neck, so it's seamed right down the center. This is an interesting idea. It's basically a multi-laminate neck, just they're not doing anything other than the two pieces. And it helps with reinforcing that neck angle that sometimes is a problem for Gibson. The other thing they're doing on the guitar that's cool is it's a lacquer finish. So it's satin back and neck and then a gloss front. Really cool. Now this is an actual 1/4-inch piece of maple. Most of the specifications on this guitar are pretty standard. It's a 12-inch radius fretboard, just like a Gibson Les Paul. The nut width is about the same as a Gibson standard, a little bit different, but about the same. It feels the same to me. And the neck carve is definitely familiar to not as thick as a 50s neck and not as thin as a 60s neck. And in my opinion, fits into a sweet spot that I think a lot of players will like. The scale length is approximate to a Gibson Les Paul as well, and another thing that's interesting is it says that it weighs 6 to 8 pounds. Of course, mine was under 6 pounds. They use StewMac 141 medium high fret wire, and that feels pretty normal too. Again, the interesting thing about this is it has a very comfortable feel to the neck. Now you can order the guitar, like I said, custom. You can put inlays and all kinds of things. This one, of course, I bought used. It comes with their Frog Dog pickups, which are their basic pickups that they put. They're kind of like a PAF style pickup is what their literature says on their website. This is a good time to mention that you can upgrade the guitar when you custom order it to Dimarzio or Seymour Duncan if you like. The switch is good. The output jack sounds fine. Potentiometers are working fine, although they're using the inexpensive smaller ones. Longevity-wise, these tend to wear out a little faster, but in the grand scheme of things, we're talking about a few years before you have to replace them. I'm not going to be looking at replacing them today because I want to focus the money that I've set aside on other things. Now, another thing I love about this guitar is it has a roller bridge. And why I love that is it makes me want to put a tremolo on this. It's a hollow body guitar. It's got a big hollow body kind of Gretsch, kind of cool sound to it. So I want to put a tremolo on the guitar, and that will help add some weight to the bass of the guitar. Some other features I think you'll find interesting is that they use a maple cap on the headstock. So they actually add this piece. So it looks like kind of like they didn't paint it or finish it like the body, but actually they added this piece and then they inlaid this beautiful piece of wood right here. I'm sure it's their logo, and then added their signature. And then they use a wood truss rod cover. Another thing that I think is kind of cool, adds a little class to the guitar. I think this guitar is all about the simplicity of it. This piece has a little bit of flaming in it, but I don't think this is their flame top series. You can add a flame top to these guitars. That's what I saw on their website, but this one looks pretty bare, but it could be flame top because as you can see, there's just a little hint of flaming in this. Another thing that they kind of brag about is that they have this cutaway here designed so that you can bend the highest fret to an E. It's called the E bend. I'm a real big fan of anything that innovates the guitars like this. I think it's a very subtle change to the look of the guitar. You didn't probably even notice that it's much different than the Les Paul, yet gives you a little bit more access. Now, the block is pretty thick right there, so you shredder guys might feel like if you don't have a big hand to put around that block, it's not gonna be the easiest thing to do. But to be honest with you, a little shift of your position, I think you'll be fine. And before we get started, I do wanna remind you that this guitar, new, without the hollow body feature, is about $800 US. This guitar, the way it sits right now, new, is $1,100 with the gig bag, which is pretty affordable for an American-made guitar from a small brand. To start this project, we're gonna go ahead and take the old strings off. Once I remove the strings, I go ahead and remove the tailpiece. Now there's something that I want you to be aware of. The first thing is you need to pay attention to which way this bridge is facing. In other words, whether the screws are facing towards the neck or towards the back of the guitar. It's also important that it doesn't fall off or these don't get adjusted in any way. One way to fix this is just use some painter's tape to hold the bridge down so it doesn't move. It's a great way to make sure nothing falls off the guitar, and you don't want it to fall and hit anything else on the table as well. To remove the original Grover tuning keys, I'm going to use a 10mm nut driver, and I do it in a very specific order. I take all the nuts off first, leaving the screws to hold the tuning keys on, and the reason is because if you remove the screws first, the tuning keys will fall through the holes and onto your work desk. So what I like to do is remove the nut and then flip the headstock over and then remove the tuning keys and then lift the tuning keys up nicely. Another big advantage of this is if they fall, they tend to bounce and then you lose them and spend 20 minutes looking for something on the floor in your shop. Now, one of the things I love about Hipshot tuners is not only are they really accurate, they have this thing called the ump plate, which is this little plate system that allows you to install them without drilling any holes and doing anything. Well, in this particular case, I found out that these plates do not work on this guitar, and here's why. The headstock is so thick that by adding the plates, it's just too thick to thread the tuning keys on. So we have to install these keys the old-fashioned way, which is to install the key and then drill a hole. The problem is the old tuning key holes are not in the same spot as the new ones, and you can see the new ones are just shallow of the old ones, which means you can't drill a hole until you fill those old ones up. So let me show you how I'm going to fill in the old holes and then install the new tuning keys. I'm going to fill them with wood glue and toothpicks, and the first thing I'm going to do is find the drill bit that fits perfectly with the toothpick. Once I find the correct size drill bit, now I'm going to use the side of the headstock to figure out the depth. I don't want to go too far. Once I figure it out, I'll use some tape and I'll tape it off so I know how deep to go. Now that you've set your depth, go ahead and drill out all 6 holes so you can dowel them. Cut off the end of the toothpick and then go ahead and measure it against the depth you put on the drill bit. Using 250 grit sandpaper, I sand both ends so that they're smooth and ready to be installed. Then using another toothpick, I go ahead and add some Type-On wood glue and fill the holes with glue. Once the glue is in there, then I take a rubber mallet and I start tapping in the toothpicks that I cut and sanded to fill each hole. Now, if any part of the toothpick is sticking out, you can use a thin saw or a razor blade to go ahead and trim off the excess that's sticking out. Now in this case, the guitar neck is mahogany, so I can use a brown Sharpie or a furniture pen to just touch it. Now you don't have to kind of color it. Just let it suck up the ink or the color, and then you'll notice it's a little dark, but then what you're going to do is take some 400 grit sandpaper and lightly sand it. It'll blend it in, and especially once the tuning key's on there, it's going to be pretty hard to detect. Now it's time to install the tuning keys, and it's very important since we're drilling a new hole, we allow the glue to dry for 24 hours before we do this. Even though the ump plates didn't work, I still lucked out on this project because all I had to do is line up the new hole right above the old hole, and then that gave me a perfect place to drill. Now I want to tell you, after you drill the hole, there's a little kit that I use from StewMac that's fantastic. It's a little expensive, but it's great. It'll save you a ton of money. One of the things it does is it has this little screw on the end of a screwdriver that you can go ahead and kind of ream out the screw without worrying about stripping the original screw when you go to put it in. That's something that happens a lot. These things are pretty delicate and you can really damage them, and you don't want to spend the afternoon dealing with that. Now, the old tuning keys are about 255 grams, which is just about 9 ounces. The new tuning keys look like they're weighing in about 191 to 193 grams, which is just under 7 ounces. So will that minor amount make a difference? Let's see. The tailpiece isn't even back on the guitar yet, and that's not including the fact that I'm going to put a slightly heavier tailpiece that has a tremolo arm on it. So how did the tuning keys work out? Well, I think this will illustrate it perfectly. Voila. And the new tuning keys look great, and what's even better is if you ever go to put the old ones back on, because the holes will go back to the old spots, you won't even see where we modded this. So now what I want to do is install the new bridge, and I'm using the Duesenberg tremolo. This is a tremolo I've used many times. It's really easy. It's pretty inexpensive. It's like $100. It works great. The only issue I'm having is the threaded posts do not fit into the inserts that is installed already in the CMG guitar. So I have two choices. I can pull the inserts and install the new inserts that came with this bridge, or I can use the original post that CMG used, and I think that's what I'm going to do because I'm not even sure I'm going to use this bridge permanently on this guitar. This bridge could not be easier to install. You basically use the 2 washers it comes with, and then I'm going to use the original posts, and you can see it just goes on. I think you can install this bridge in about 30 seconds, and it works fantastic. Once I've installed the bridge, I'm just gonna go ahead and string it up with some 10 to 46s. And again, with the new locking keys in this top load system, I can restring this guitar in no time. All right, here it is. It has the new Duesenberg tremolo. It has the Hipshot open gear locking keys, and the balance on this thing is fantastic. Like I said, now you can see before, it's a little bit back heavy. You can see I can't really do it anymore. So it's balanced. Now again, weight-wise, it's about the same as it was before. Believe it or not, this bridge and the tuning keys were not much far off from what the original Grovers were. So how does it sound? Well, like I said, let's give it a shot. We're gonna be on the bridge position. This bridge feels great, and like I said, it's an interesting guitar now. It definitely has a unique feel to it. The neck pickup is super huge. It sounds very acoustic and full sounding. I believe this tremolo is giving it a very airy quality. The middle position is going to be a perfect blend of the bright bridge and of course the really warm bassy neck pickup. And I keep kind of going to this tremolo. Now you can move the tremolo out of the way. All right, here we go. Let's do the middle. Ready? Before I go, I just want to let you guys know, I did buy this guitar used, so I want to let you know that if I take the price of the guitar used, the tuning keys and the bridge, this entire guitar costs less than $1,000. So it was like $800 for the guitar, it's about $70 to $80 for the tuning keys, and about $100 for the bridge. So you can imagine it just came under $1,000. Now, if you're thinking about buying these new, I want to point out that Ryan and Angela from RNA Music, they are a small dealer in Texas. They are a dealer of CMG guitars. I want to give a shout out to them. Why? Because they are great people, and in these times, I should say, we need to support the small dealers. If you're thinking about buying one of these guitars, give them a call or email them. I'm sure that they'd be glad to take care of you. As always, if you want to support this channel, you can buy merch down below or become a patron, or for absolutely free, you can just subscribe or hit like on the video. Either way, I appreciate your support. Until the next time, thank you so much for your time, and know your gear.